So this is Bill Haskett, and could you tell us what this is called?
This is a telescope.
Oh, this is a
No,
telescope.
wait a minute, why don't we, hang on, just,
That was the cow. So you can see the other part of it. So this is a 180mm solar scope. I started out getting a smaller one, and then I just kept on looking at the advertisements, and the price at first was shocking, but after staring at the price for a while, you get used to it. So, you know, I may as well. What is it? A couple of days work. Okay, so the main body of the scope is only about that big. Well, it's really only that big. But this section attached at the end is a little pressure tube. And once you equilibrate it to the place that you are, by taking that off, there it's equilibrated.
Just like atmospheric pressure, basically. Okay.
And actually unwind it a little bit more. But then when you are looking through, you can change the pressure inside this little section, which allows you to bring out specific detail on the sun. So you can see the, I call them crenulations, the lines that you see on all these fancy pictures that Richard has some to show. Or you can go for the flares that are popping up, prominences. This is the white light wedge that I have on it right now, but we also have,
yeah, okay.
and this is the hydrogen alpha 90-degree.
Sorry, isn't the hydrogen alpha where you tune it?
It's in here, and you pressure tune. What you're pressure tuning is the air within the cylinder, but the hydrogen alpha filter sits back.
There's a filter which distorts. It's the Etalon. You can do it mechanically.
Yeah.
The one that the club has is a mechanical version. And then they introduced this more sophisticated version, which is the pressure tube. So you're compressing it, but you're still distorting two glass surfaces that are in very close proximity to one another. Or you can tune it with heat. And ones that the club owns, and we'll talk about that later. So there's various ways to distort to make the filter move. That happens to be the hydraulic.
But the pressure tube, actually, I was reading the other day, is in fact changing the optical path length. They're changing the refractive index of the medium as a result of the pressure rather than moving the planes. Now, maybe there may be some distortion.
Oh, really?
Okay, so
The main thing is changes the optical path length. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Really?
So the,
Yeah.
and so the hydrogen alpha. It's in here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's very strange. That's very different than what I understood.
Also, one of the advantages of getting something this size is that not only can you look at the sun easily, but you can sub out the back part of the equipment, and you can use it for regular viewing. It also comes with a diagonal and a 90-degree. Diagonal is for looking at boats out on the water. That's what they say. I'm not trying to do that. One of the easiest things to do is find the sun without looking at it. This red handle here. Well, first of all, on any solar scope, the easiest way to get the sun close is to look at your shadow on the ground and make the shadow as small as you possibly can. And that means that the tube is pointed directly at the sun. Now, once I do that, then I look through the bottom part here, I don't look through, I look at, because remember, the sun's coming straight down that way, so I'm not gonna look at the sun at any time. But there's a red dot on the end of the handle. Because it's actually a miniature scope. But there's a red dot that forms, you put the red dot in the middle, and then you can look through the eyepiece, or the camera should have the image right in the middle. So anyway, this is what I bought because of the light during the summer. And the bugs.
Yeah. Yeah, the great thing about a solar scope is that when the weather's good in on the Sunshine Coast, the nights are not dark, but the day is bright. And so you can, yeah, the closest star to us is the sun. And these scopes are specifically designed so you can see details on the sun. What I like to say is the boiling surface of the sun, as well as the flames that come off the edge.
Well, we do have a club scope, a club solar scope that members can borrow. And that's a good way to get started.
Thank you very much. And let's see. Oh, yeah. Are there any questions?
I was just, it just worked curiosity. When you've equilibrated the pressure, say that's one of the earlier steps, then how when you're wanting to adjust it by increasing the pressure, where does the pressure that's higher than atmosphere come from?
It comes from its mechanical advantage. It's like a large focus knob. You turn it.
There's a piston.
There's it pressurized, like you mechanically
Yeah.
turning, and
Piston.
it's squeezing up a finite volume.
And
It's got grease around, and it's an O-ring, and it's greased, so you pressurize it.
It's just, thanks for humoring me.
And if I just took mine off, and if you were listening carefully as I took it off, it was.
yeah.
Okay, so mine is same as Bill's. It's just a smaller version, works exactly the same way. But what I did do today, when there was a bit of sun, was I took a video of the actual tuning process, which I will now show you. Okay, so that is what you see when you first focus on the sun. I think that's you.
Okay.
Just click that. Okay, and so as you focus, or as you start tuning to look specifically at the hydrogen alpha wavelength, there's a little bit of cloud passing actually, which didn't help, but you see that the details start to come out.
But some of that is just clouds.
The blurry stuff is cloud, but you can see the granularity underneath now is coming out. And you can see the sunspots and the plages, bright spots, as I tune it.
Yeah. It starts to look more like an orange peel.
And as I say, it didn't help that there was these clouds that kept appearing when I was trying to take the video. So that's fairly detailed view of that's sort of fully tuned, and then I refocus it slightly on the, and then what I do and then make a picture is then I stack a whole, usually about 200 frames to get the detail, to bring out the detail. And then if I increase the gain or the exposure, then what you can begin to see is the flares coming off the side.
Stupid question, but why is it in black and white?
Because it's hydrogen alpha, so it's a single wavelength. So I could put it in color, but I could make it any color you could like. I could make it pink.
Oh, right,
blue.
but that-
It's a monochrome.
It's a monochrome image.
okay,
Yeah, it's the
That's the
camera.
whole point. It's a single wavelength.
okay,
A hydrogen alpha is just one spectral line,
all right.
a hydrogen
I just
transition.
wondered, because when I look on, on my, see when people show me sun pictures, it's always orange.
Yeah, because we just color them. That's what happens when I could make it. I made it
Well, so
red.
they're making it color.
But
Well,
not-
that's after the event. That's post processing.
But hold it just a sec. I think we may be getting a little confused here. If you look through a hydrogen alpha filter, you will see an orange colored sun. Is that not correct?
Red.
Red.
Okay, well, red, okay, red. But this was a black and white camera.
Yes, but when you're seeing red, you're seeing a single wavelength.
That's,
So it makes no difference from the point of view of the
oh yeah, you're
camera.
not losing any
You're not losing
information.
information.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
take it in monochrome
Yeah.
and then color it.
That's right, but I think the question was basically, how come it's not red?
Yeah,
And it's not red because it was a black and white camera,
yeah, okay.
but it's not like we're losing information, which is
Right.
rigid.
That is that's with the color camera.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Or just a reminder that the reason that we, correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost. that We have a hydrogen alpha filter that only passes a single wavelength, which is the hydrogen alpha
Transition.
wavelength.
Yes.
And a narrow band. And the reason that you do that is to limit the energy coming from all the other wavelengths. Because if you look at the sun and all of its wavelengths, the energy will blind you.
Well, it's not so much, it's not just light, it's black body radiation, so it's not going to give you any detail. When you're looking at the hydrogen alpha transition, you're just looking at one particular transition. So it brings out, so you're not looking at black, you're looking at spectral emission, not black body radiation. If that makes sense.
So what you're looking at is what's happening to the hydrogen on the surface of the sun,
That's the important thing.
not what's happening to everything.
You could pick another frequency, and then you would see slightly different image. So you
Yes.
have calcium, potassium, and other wavelengths that are used. This particular one is when as the sun does what the sun is doing, generating its energy, a lot of the energy is being released at that part in the spectrum. So if you looked at the whole spectrum, it's a big spike there.
But if
But
you
it's-
ask the question, what is the point of one of these filters?
It's because if you're looking at spectral emission, not black body radiation. That's what makes the difference.
If you just have a sort of Herschel wedge, okay, what it does is it just rejects like 99% of the light or whatever. So that will dim it down so that you're not blinded, but you'll never see the kind of details that you see with hydrogen alpha. You will not see the prominences. You will not see the granularity.
You see, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you couldn't take a narrow wavelength, just an arbitrary, if it's black body radiation, it's just, if you took an arbitrary wavelength and narrowed it down, it would just be a dim image, unless you focused on a specific element. I mean, I don't know, I don't think it's much calcium in the sun, is there? But anyway, it has to be, you're looking at a specific element and a specific transition in a specific element. Because then what happens is the sun just heats up and it just radiates in all wavelengths, and you lose the detail. But if you're looking at that specific spectral emission, then you get the detail.
But one of the benefits of only looking at a single narrow band wavelength is that it actually rejects all the other stuff. And so you don't have a bright image.
But it has to be a specific transition. There's no point in just taking.
So the point of a hydrogen alpha filter is not high-tech eye protection.
No,
No,
No.
no.
nothing to do with that.
Just
No.
I'm slightly smart.
side.
This-
You could have, I mean.
And
if
that's
you
why,
went-
and they cost a lot of money, right? I mean,
Right.
that, you know, it's not just a simple like, you know, you can put on, you know, welder's glass and that'll protect your eyes.
Because making the flat surfaces is very difficult and expensive. You have to have two very, very flat surfaces to get the light to resonate, because you've got to get it to resonate in the cavity. So the distance has to be a multiple of the precise wavelengths that you're looking at.
That, yeah, I don't know if you recall from my talk on gravitational observatory, but there was the Fabry-Perot.
Yes, that whole side of the gravitational wavelength in terms of the creation and refinement and re-refinement of the laser beam using those filters.
Yeah.
Was new and amazing.
Well, that's,
Okay, so that's what a hydrogen alpha filter is, except instead of being a 4-mile long Fabry-Perot interferometer, it's very small. And it's just allowing that one frequency, one wavelength of hydrogen light through. Okay.
Well, after that very complicated discussion about how to image the sun for hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, I want to show another rather cheaper way of doing it, and it's a beer can. So you take a beer can, the brand doesn't matter, although IPA seems to get best results. You take a piece of the old-fashioned photographic paper that you would have developed a print on, if you can find it. That's tough these days, because the local London Drugs doesn't sell this stuff anymore, but you can get it. And you pop it inside the can, and we're making a pinhole camera. So that means we need a pinhole. So I've made a pinhole there. I used a hypodermic needle to make a really small, fine pinhole. Make sure that the sensitive side is actually facing the pinhole, otherwise you're going to be wasting your time, and make a light-proof cap. I'm doing this under here. It is obviously fading. The sensitive part of the paper is absorbing the photons, but it doesn't matter very much for this process. It's really remarkably slow. Take your can, find somewhere safe to put it, outside, pointing the pinhole in the direction of the sun, and leave it outside for 6 months. 3 months, yes, 6 months certainly better. And then when you take it out, pull the paper out, you will find an image like that, where every day the path of the sun across in front of the pinhole is recorded. If it was a cloudy day, there's a dark line. If it was a sunny day, there's sorry, the inverse of that. And of course, it's starting to fade again once you've taken it out of the can. Remarkably, it's in color. It's a black and white film, not black and white paper, but the chemical reaction that takes place is actually given a greenish blue color. You don't fix it, at least not the way that photographers fix it. You just stick it in a photocopier and take a picture. And then stick. Can you hold it? Yes.
Let me.
Closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you can see there is as the sun rises in the sky, it goes higher and higher across. You also see the non-moving objects. So those are the trees on the side of my property and the fence across because they didn't move, but the sun did.
You can see the dark bands, like that's November. That's when it rained and you didn't see the sun the whole month. Right.
Yeah, it's a great project for kids, except kids don't tend to have 6 months worth of patience for any project, but
Well, they don't drink beer either, at least they should.
it needs to be a tall can if we get the pip in. If you're interested in trying that, I recommend it. It's an interesting project. We do have paper. The club did buy some paper, so, and I've got some envelopes if you want to take some sheets home, and I'm sure you can find your own beer can. So that's a very safe way to look at the sun. Otherwise, when we talk about the sun, we always talk about safety, because even with the solar scopes that you've seen already, you can still hurt your eyes if you don't get the filters right. These don't come off, but others do. If there's a finder scope attached to a telescope, sometimes the solar scope itself is safe, but the finder scope isn't and hasn't got protection over it. So you've always got to be careful, because it only takes a moment's exposure of the eye to the sun to do permanent damage.
I haven't been using my white light wedge at all because I lost my polarizing filter, which needs to go on it. And while I'm sitting here putting it away, I found it was sitting on my wedge already. So I can use it now. So this is a big benefit for this meeting. I don't have to buy another polar.
Is a polarizing filter adequate for that purpose, you think?
After it goes through the wedge, yeah.
It's not like a 50, yeah, I mean, you can,
Is it the
Virtually 100%.
adjustable type?
No,
oh. It's just like.
For
a
the
50
wedge polarizes, of course.
but this, and it's obviously turnable.
Anyway, the reason we're talking about the sun, actually we had a sunny day today, so that's nice, but and we all know that the sun goes through cycles. Right now, this is a chart showing the last few sunspot cycles, and we're in cycle number 25 right now. It's the cycle that's not complete here at the end of the chart. And I think you can see, I hope you can see the red lines is stopping. That's where we are today. The green line is the projection. And so we're halfway up to the projected peak in solar activity. And along with solar activity, that normally means more exciting stuff happening on the surface and on the side of the sun. So now is a good time to be digging out the solar gear, because we've got 3 or 4 more years.
I was going to say, when is the projected, what's the date of projected peak?
But that'll be 2021 at the start of it. So that will be 11 years.
This is 2025, yeah.
So we've got that many years to go to the peak, and then we've got a similar number of years coming down the other side as well. It'll still be fairly active. So that's why we're interested in the sun. And when on the sun, so far we've talked about looking at the hydrogen alpha, the emissions, and using fancy filters. Another way to do it in a way that I actually like is to use a safe filter and look at the white light. So we're looking at all of the information, that's all of the wavelengths of light that are being produced. We take them through an ordinary telescope without any filter on the end. It shouldn't be too big, because you'll capture too much light if you do that. But a 3-inch or 4-inch refractor is a perfectly good telescope for doing this. And then putting it into this device called a Herschel wedge. There's a fancy prism inside here, and the role of the prism is that a very small percentage, 5% or so of the light, will go to the eyepiece, and the other 95% gets sent in a different direction. It has a nice convenient ceramic plate on the back, so the ceramic plate takes all the heat, takes all the energy and disperses it in the form of heat. It also has the benefit of being semi-translucent. So when this is pointing at the sun, by looking here, if the sun is properly centered, I'll see a nice orange glow down there. So this is actually a very safe way of aligning it. You just have to keep looking at the back and moving it around. until you see the sun down there. This is called a Herschel wedge, and it's made by a couple of different manufacturers these days. That's my personal one. And that's probably my favorite way of looking at the sun, but you only see sunspots. You won't see any prominences.
Could you just show
Well, that's my gear.
oh, okay.
So what I'm showing you there was my gear, but it was suggested we should probably talk about the club equipment too, because the club has quite a collection of equipment and we've invested over the years. So one of them is, we have one of those hydrogen alpha telescopes. This is the small one in the Coronado. And every time we have a public event, this is always out. It's very popular. People will look through that. You can hold it close to the camera. It's this one here, Coronado. Same hydrogen alpha technology we talked about before. This one is a mechanical tuner. You turn the knob at the back here to adjust the pressure on the plates of the etolon. The club also has recently invested in this, which is just an eyepiece. So, but it's an eyepiece with an etolon inside it. And it's controlled by, it's adjusted by varying the temperature. So you plug this into lithium ion battery pack, and then you put this on a small telescope and an eyepiece in the other end, and here we have a hydrogen alpha telescope. We've got the appropriate equipment to go along with that as well. So we're very well equipped for looking at the sun. And when we do our public outreach events, which are always done in the summer, of course, that's one of the main draws that brings members of the public over to talk to us, is to look at the sun. And finally, the club groups. We have a filter.
Yeah.
When you deal with optics.
What's that?
I say, I just hate that word when we're dealing with optics.
What?
Whoops.
Whoops.
We have various filters that we put over equipment to attenuate the light. This is an example. It's a sort of mylar film. This one here, just a cardboard box that fits over the end of the telescope and makes a perfectly safe filter to give white light views of the sun. But be careful there aren't any pinholes in there, because any pinholes in there and you've now got bright light coming straight down into your eyes. So you do have to be careful with these. I think. Oh yeah, and then this version of the Herschel wedge, the club also owns a version of that as well. So if anyone wants to come to the observatory during the day, look at the sun, we've got all the equipment that you might want, choose to use. Herschel wedge. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Okay.